In our headlines tonight, Barbados and other CARICOM countries devise a coronavirus plan. An update on plans to modernize government, ministries and departments. Counting underway in Guyana's elections. And in sports, Australia takes the final playoff spot in the Women's T20 World Cup.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC Newsnight, starting now.
Very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Broom. Thanks for joining us. With 3 cases of the coronavirus detected in the Caribbean and over 86,000 recorded globally, CARICOM has devised a plan to deal with the deadly virus. That was one of the major outcomes of yesterday's meeting of CARICOM heads of government and other high-level officials held here in Barbados at the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Center. Rianne Phillips tells us more.
Prime Minister NewsNight-Mar2 has announced a regional protocol on COVID-19 and an expanded Bureau of Heads of Government to deal with issues arising from the virus. She made a disclosure after a meeting with CARICOM leaders, heads of regional institutions and other officials at the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Center.
A regional protocol that establishes minimum standards as to what we expect from the cruise industry, what we expect from our own member states, the extent to which one member state may differ from another will be collated and supplied to the cruise industry by no later than Tuesday evening by CARFA. CARFA, for those who don't know, is the Caribbean Public Health Agency. And similarly, we've created a subcommittee of the Bureau in order to be able to start the discussions with our regional and international partners. And against that background, we have asked both PAHO and CARFA to help us in the identification of the gaps that exist within our respective member states.
And this old naval base here at Harsons Point in St. Lucie is to be retrofitted to host coronavirus patients in the event of an outbreak.
We had MTW clear all of the bush because regrettably it has become overgrown. All of the windows and doors, conduit, wires, everything lifted out, but the buildings are in good shape. And that's the important thing that will allow us to move quickly. And it is against that background, therefore, that so long as we can identify the requisite resources, we will, on a building by building by building basis, start to increase our capacity even beyond the 80 to 100 that I spoke to you about on Thursday in the press conference, because we are cognizant that as a home port, we also have to be able to contain and to be able to allow persons in the event that there is a problem.
While noting the spread of the coronavirus is inevitable, Ms. Motley has cautioned regional citizens against panicking or developing xenophobic attitudes. Rianne Phillips, CBC News.
Thanks, Rianne. The digitization of a number of government departments is well on stream, and the money provided to the Ministry of Innovation, Science and Smart Technology will help the process along. This from Minister Senator Kay McConney, who says her ministry is requesting $18.9 million for the 2020-2021 financial year. She says about $7.5 million will go to public sector modernization, under which digitization falls. Minister McConney gave an update on the process to convert the millions of paper files. Now, some of these include more than 66,000 records from the Royal Barbados Police Force, converted so far to facilitate the online application for certificates of character.
We have started work with the Immigration Department, digitizing 211,000 of their records. We are about 3% through it, and we expect that process will be coming closer to an end just after the middle of this year. Again, Registration Department, we have been working with them to digitize some 93,000 plus records in an attempt to make it easier for Barbadians to get birth certificates and death certificates and marriage certificates over a period of time. Again, that process will be done later in this year. In addition, going into 2020-2021, we will continue our digitization efforts with the Lands and Surveys Department being a priority.
Minister McConney says some of the people made redundant under the BERT program have also found work within the digitization process. Now, during the estimates debate, we've also been hearing about government's continuing efforts to improve the online payments process. Director of the Data Protection Department, Rodney Taylor, says the work so far has enabled the system to receive payments from anywhere around the world for a large number of services, including those of the Corporate Affairs Department.
We're rolling out an e-receipting solution within the first few weeks of the new financial year, which will see all of government's payments being able to be collected online. While we wait for the process re-engineering at the back end and the full integration of that payment to the back end system, so that there's a full system implementation in terms of the ability to apply and pay for the service online.
Mr. Taylor stresses that payments for government services can now be made via Easy Pay using debit or credit cards, and more vendors are coming on board. Meanwhile, opposition leader Bishop Joseph Atherley has raised questions about the amount the ministry expects to spend on professional services during the upcoming financial year. It was one of three questions Bishop Atherley posed during his response to Minister McConney's opening presentation. The opposition leader also asked how is the BERT program impacting the ministry's progress, and to what extent has the ministry's efforts improved business facilitation in Barbados.
More than a quarter of what you are requesting in non-statutory funding goes to professional services. And I wonder if we could have some specifics with reference to that, because a substantial amount, unless my calculations are wrong, $4 million out of $14 million going to professional services. If I'm wrong, correct me. If I'm not wrong, please, you need to give us some details as to how and where and with whom these monies allocated or be requested for professional services will be spent.
Coming up, an update on elections in Guyana. We'll have that story and much more after the break. Another appeal is being made for people to come forward as kidney donors. This will allow Barbados to drastically reduce the number of people currently on dialysis. It comes from patron of the British charity Transplant Link, Baroness Dame Floella Benjamin. She was speaking at a media conference to screen a testimonial video from a mother and daughter team who were involved in the kidney transplant program. Since 2016, the charity, through a partnership with the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, has facilitated 10 kidney transplants. Baroness Benjamin says a significant dent can be made in the hundreds of thousands of dollars Barbados spends each year on the more than 400 people currently on dialysis, but that can only be done if more people volunteer.
My biggest wish is for the government to have a policy where people carry a donor card to say, I'm willing to be a donor, but also for people to come forward to do live operations, live donations to their kidneys. So far, I've seen 2 people who've given their kidneys. A mother who's given her kidney to her daughter, and we have today here a daughter who's given her kidney to her mother. And you should see how they look. The donors look beautiful. They should be poster girls. They look gorgeous, and it's to show that you can walk around with just one kidney.
The Transplant Link team is coordinated by Dr. Jenny Jewett Harris, while the Barbados kidney transplant team is led by surgeon Dr. Margaret O'Shea. Dr. Jewett Harris says Transplant Link has all confidence in the local medical team.
You now have a transplant program. That's the point we've got to now. This needs now to become every day. It's part of routine medicine now that Barbados has a transplant program. We'll be in the background to support when needed, and for the next couple of years we'll still continue to make visits on a regular basis. After that, then I think we'll just be needed for the more difficult cases and any other skill transfer that's needed.
Barbadians are being told that Vision 2020 regathering is no one-hit wonder. Project coordinator Selma Green says a goal has been set to look at the sustainability of the events. She was speaking on TV8's The People's Business.
One of the outcomes of this is to ensure that we have a 52-week calendar as a legacy benefit coming out of this. So as we go through the parishes, all of these events that are being put on are being tested to see whether or not they can be future-proofed in terms of their sustainability. So next year, for example, we intend to see Gather at the Bay. Because
Spite Song Alive.
We intend to see Spite Stung Alive. We expect to see the Heart of Barbados weekend. So that's one sure way of making sure that there is sustainability from the perspective of the events.
Well, it's St. Thomas' turn for the celebrations, and PRO of the St. Thomas Parish Organizing Committee, Carl Applewhite, says We Gathering will be sustainable in more ways than just the events.
When we look at intergenerational linkages, this relationship can't be established in a year. So we don't expect that people will be going in, persons that's in a primary school or a secondary school will be going to the geriatric hospital or going to the elderly once or just twice. We expect that out of those visits, relationships can be formed. And that's where the sustainability comes in, because what you learn, you're therefore going to carry with you into your life. So what a child learns, that child emulates that behavior, that child inculcates that way of thinking and takes that beyond just 2020.
As the curtain came down on African Awareness Month recently, schools across the island marked the occasion with their own special celebrations. At the Eden Lodge Primary School, students were decked out in their African-inspired wear as they took part in activities. As acting principal Otling Straker explains, the theme for their celebration was We Gathering, One Caribbean Unity.
Each class has chosen a Caribbean island where they'll study about the history and other special characteristics of the particular island. The children have made flags, and they use these flags during the concert which was held. The concert consisted of songs, drama, poetry.
Special guest for the day was Cultural Ambassador Anthony the Mighty Gabby Carter. He had this inspirational message for the students.
I explained to them that they are the future of Barbados and that they should obey their teachers and their parents and all that, and they should keep reading despite the fact that they have computers or laptops or tablets or whatever, that they need to read.
Still to come, counting underway after thousands voted today in Guyana's elections. Notre Dame and Paradise level on points in the BFA Premier League. But before we get to all of that, here's a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Drinking excessive amounts of alcohol in a short space of time, also known as binge drinking, can lead to alcohol poisoning, which can make you unconscious or even kill you. This tip is brought to you in association with the National Council on Substance Abuse, promoting drug awareness.
In Guyana, voters headed to the polls today. The general election comes as the country is poised for an oil boom, which is expected to transform its economy. Incumbent President David Granger is facing Irfan Ali for the top post. Now, in this NCN Guyana report, we hear how the voting process went in the East Bank of Demerara area.
Voters residing along the east bank of Demerara turned out in their numbers to cast their ballots in the 2020 general and regional elections. This newscast visited several polling places, including the Houston Secondary School, Peters Hall Primary School, Providence Primary School, Grove Primary School, Craig Primary School, and Herstelling Health Center. Several senior citizens and persons with disabilities told this newscast that the procedure coordinated by the Guyana Elections Commission officers were seamless. However, others had mixed views about the voting process.
I think it is fair to cloudy, because my wife, her name was not, they had to go into the system to get her name and that kind of story, and she had to swear and whatnot, whereas it should be, you know, up front. And this section is slow, the other side is very fast, and it can frustrate people.
Yeah, so I went in, gets done, you know, they're putting disabled people first as a priority, and I really appreciated that. You know, this means a great deal to me.
Well, it was good. It was good, and they were helpful in my situation.
It was smooth, very good. Yeah, and with my, you know, I was given some privilege to go in before, so I'm happy.
This thing can't finish 6 o'clock this afternoon. It wouldn't. They're going too slow.